Okay, and we're back to start on the second segment for creating a face in ArtMatic. As you remember, we just created this central part of the face in this compiled tree here. I had just told you that we're looking like we're pretty asymmetrical here, and that we probably need to get some symmetry in, because as we know, a face is bilaterally symmetrical. So the way we're going to do that is I'm just going to create a single tile above the one I've just created here. We'll go on in a little minute and we'll create the two segments that control the eyes and the mouth, but since we want the entire face to be symmetrical, I'm going to put the symmetry in now because it'll just make it a little bit easier to work with as we go. I'm going to turn this into a compiled tree straight away, and the way that I do that is I just type the N key, N for Nelly key. It straight away creates a compiled tree with that one single component that we had before inside it. I'm going to select a tile now to create symmetry, and I'm going to use for this the branch N component. Now there are many ways you can make symmetry inside of ArtMatic, and this one is a good all-purpose one. It has its own little unique properties. You can control the number of points of symmetry. In this case, you'll see we've got numerous points of symmetry, but we only want one symmetrical axis in this, so I'm just going to take this right down to one. So we've got basically left and a right here. That's going to give us the two sides of the face, which is exactly what we want. So I'll come back out of there. I've made this into a compiled tree because I'm going to put some other things in there later on, but we'll just, for the moment, we'll just talk about it as the one symmetry component. And in here, now everything inside this compiled tree here is now going to be modified by the symmetry component above it. So everything I do here will actually be replicated across a mirror axis, if you like. Oh, the one other thing I have to do here actually is I've got the symmetry orienting outward here. I just want to change it to orient inward. It's just a way that the symmetry is actually across the axis which way it mirrors. You can play with that and you can see what the differences are, but for the purposes of building a face we need it to be this way. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to move these around a bit just so you can see what happens when I start. And that's our top part of the face. I'll just move it down a bit. You'll need to move your face around a little bit to get the best effect for what you're trying to achieve. And here I'm just going to change the phase a little bit on this to give some different kind of looks to the face. You see it. You can do all kinds of things. This is just a matter of, you're going to play around with this to see what kind of thing you want to have here. It's really up to you. And at the end of this tutorial I'll tell you how you can actually create hundreds of different faces very rapidly without having to actually individually tweak each of these components. But anyway, that's good for the moment. And the next thing I'm going to do is I want to create I'll go to the eyes. So I'll create another little side tree here, and I'm going to, just because I want it to be here, I'm going to put it on the other side of the tree. And once again, this one we want it to end up as a 2 in 3 out component, so I'm going to do that. It automatically puts in the UI software logo placeholder, but in this particular case we're going to put components inside it, so I'm going to make it into a compiled tree by hitting the N key, and I'll go inside and I'll see that that one is there. I don't want that. I'm just going to turn it into a 3D Z set. Actually I want it to be a 2 out, so I'll just do this. And below it I'm going to put another component and make that one into a 1 out, because this is where I'm going to put my Gaussian dot. Okay, this component here is not the one I want to be here because it's skewing the shape. So I'll just put in a scale and offset. Scale and offset's a very good thing to put in just as a generic tile, because it doesn't do anything unless you tell it to. For a placeholder tile, it's a good one to have. And I'm going to make this little gadget, I'm going to make a little smaller here. I could do this two ways. I can actually change the size in here. That's one way of doing it, or I could change it here, but for the moment I'm going to do it inside here just because I want it to be in the component itself. Okay. What's happening here is that it's actually being mirrored across that axis, because as you remember, this tile is now affecting both of these streams. We're not seeing this stream yet because we haven't actually terminated it. We're not connected the two together. So as I think I told you before, the left hand side will always be the thing you see until the termination is done. So I've made it smaller, but what I'm going to show you here is that we've got the axis of symmetry running. You can barely see it there, it's just not quite circular. But if I move this across to the side, you'll see, oh, there's two circles. That's excellent, because we want two eyes. And I'm going to make them quite small here, and I'm also going to just boost their amplitude just a tiny bit here. So we've gone a little bit too far over there. So I'm just going to move them back closer together a little bit. Okay. Now I also want to create a tile here to handle the color of the eyes, and once again just connect that all together as I showed you before. Because I'm doing a tricky thing with the eyes here, I want two parts to the eye. I'm going to create another parallel tree, so this is just going to give me a little pupil in the eye as well. So another Gaussian dot, connect another tile below it here and turn that into a 3 in 3 out, connect them both up, and once again we're going to join these at the bottom, and the way that I have to do that is to create a pack tile here and another one here, 3 in 1 out. We're only just seeing this left hand side at this stage. I'm going to pack these, and I'm going to join this up with a 2 in 3 out. This is all we talked about all this in the other tutorial, as you remember. This is make the tree a bit compact. So you'll see that this is a tree not unlike the one we just created in the first part of the tutorial. It's got two parallel streams, and they're a Gaussian dot that's being changed by a color tile at the bottom here. This is what I was telling you before. It's really simple. This is just a lot of repetition in this tree, really. The reason I created this second one here is because I want a pupil and an eye, and I want them to be different sizes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a scale and offset above these. I can change the size here, as I said before, so I can just make this smaller here. It's easy to do that. But I've got a little bit more control if I do it here. I can use the scale component. I can make this quite small by doing that. It's kind of hard to know what the best way of doing something like this is. I tend to chop and change according to what I'm doing. But here you'll see that I've got two little sort of eyes. I'm just going to move this little thing up and to the right a little bit, as if it's sort of some reflection-y thing. Okay, and these are now joined together down here, so we're still only seeing this right hand side. Now I can give this a color. I can give the outside a little color. Let's try a bit of red here. Let's make them a bit red on the outside for demon eyes. And there we have it. We have our component which is giving us symmetry is there. This is our main face, and this is our eyes. We haven't yet connected these two together, so we don't have a mixer component for them. So there you go. There you saw I just clicked on this little key here, which sums the tree. Basically says find a solution to joining this tree. In this particular case it worked perfectly because it's given me exactly the kind of little mixer that I want. So now you can see we have a kind of a face, and it's got a couple of eyes. So we're in pretty good shape here. Now the other thing that I want to have is a mouth. So once again, this is just going to be a variation on what we just did. I'm going to create a tile. I'm going to turn it into a compiled tree. I'm going to look inside. That's the one that I just created. I'm using a Gaussian dot again. Remember, this is going to be also affected by the symmetry. I'm going to put a tile above it, and another one just below here. We'll turn this one into a 3 in 3 out as well. Connect it back here. I don't need to add anything else in here because I've only just got that one component that I want to deal with, which will create the mouth. I'll put in a scale and offset up here. As you'll see that it's not there yet, but again, this is just because we haven't mixed it in. So I'm going to create a mixer here. So another channel to be mixed with this one here. So once again, a 3 in 1 out. This is just so I can create another packed component here so that I can join it with this mixer. So these two streams are being mixed here by that mixer. Now I want to mix this one with those two. So let's just create a 2 in 3 out, which we know is the color mixer. Join it up there. I'll just neaten the tree up now. You can see what's happening is I've got this big white circle. Well, the reason for that is we're now seeing this dot, but it's just big and taking all the space up. So I want to make it smaller, so I'll do that here. Just make it tiny, tiny. This is going to be the mouth. I'm going to move it down so it'll be where a mouth should be. And it's obviously doing the exact wrong thing. We don't want it to be light, we want it to be a mouthy shadow. So I'm going to add a component here. This is a filter component. There are many of these filter components, and what I'm going to do here is just reverse the values. So instead of it being light, it's going to be dark. It'll give us our mouth. So let's go back out to the top of the tree there. Now, one thing you'll have seen straight away is it's gotten all very kind of dim and gloomy here. And that's because of the mixer values. I can actually change these mixer values to get them how I want them to be, and sometimes you'll find that a different kind of mixer is a better idea. So I'll change this to an additive mixer, just because it'll give me greater control over the values that I can have here between these two segments. And remember, this mixer is mixing the eyes and the main body of the face. This one is mixing the mouth and the rest of the face. I can just get a little bit more value there. I can go back into this component here and I can change. You will need to fiddle with this a little bit to get your best effects, but they're just to make that mouth a little bit darker. Now remember, I said that this is being affected by symmetry as well. You can't really see it there because it's not offset, but if I move the mouth to the side slightly, let's just check what happens. There we go. See, it's a circle. It's still a circle like the eyes. It's just because it's in the middle. It's not being affected. But one thing I can do is I can use that to my advantage, and I'll just put a little skew component in here, and it gives me a way of actually either increasing the skew amount or rotating it to give a different kind of mouth. It's actually just swinging a squashed version of the Gaussian dot around and around on an axis, and that gives me a sort of a ability to make a mouth. Okay, so there's our basic structure. Oh, one other thing that I did here, which I'll go back and show you. You can see these eyes are kind of a bit messy. They don't pop out quite as much. That's because I created some eye sockets as well. And that was in this tree. I didn't want to do that before because you wouldn't have been able to see it against the other part of the face properly, but now we can. So I'm going to go back in here, and this is where I'm going to create the sockets. So another tree to the side, another Gaussian dot, put a component above it there, just replicating exactly what we've done before, so there's no real difference whatsoever. I'll create a mixer at the bottom here. We need to pack this one again as well, because now I'm going to mix it with this one. So I'll just create another mixer. Just ignore all that stuff that happens there. Now I want to join these two together, so create another 2 in 3 out. Okay, so now I've got one big blobby circle. That's why that's gone all so bright there. So let's make that smaller as well. Small, small, small. You see it's gone behind those other two eyes there, which is good. And as you just saw a little minute ago, I'm going to use a filter here, and I'm going to make those darker. So I've got some eye sockets here, and I can, using these mixers, I can actually get a balance between all of these elements to try and get the best effect. And I may need to, play with these and try a different kind of mixer. An additive mixer works better there. It's basically so that what's happened here is that it's just dropped some contrast behind the eye to lift it out a bit. There are lots of little tricks like that you can do. You don't need to stick to doing what I've done here, but if you want to get a good effect, you might want to try that. So let's just pop back out to the top of this now. And there was a couple of other things that I did in this that you might like to see. This is something that I do often if I'm doing something that's symmetrical. You'll find that in nature things are very rarely exactly symmetrical. They have all kinds of little variances and distortions to them. So I'm going to put in now above this another noise function. This is the low frequency random noise. And I'm going to move its frequency up a little bit, and its amplitude up a little bit, and then just try mucking around with the face. Now see what this has actually done here is it's just given me I've still got my symmetrical face, but it's just changed the symmetry somewhat so that it doesn't feel like it's too regular. And if you've been paying attention to the tree that we had before, the main tree that I started off with, you'll have noticed also there was another component in here, and I had in there another low frequency random component. Let's just make that, let's go in there and do it in there instead. Okay, and I also had a little offset component, scale and offset component in here. What I'm doing here is I'm moving around the components in such a way that they've been played with before they get to the main components, but they're still being affected by the symmetry component above it. I can't really tell you why I've done this. It's just gives me another set of things to play with. So there we have it. We have a monster face created in ArtMatic. Got two eyes, oh yes, and there was one other thing I forgot to tell you. How did I do the horns? Here was another thing that I actually popped into this system later on. So I've just gone back into the main face system here. This is the main part of the face, and I'm going to add one more component, and this is going to be the spots displace. Spots displace puts in spots. You can kind of see them there. I'll just crease. Okay, so what it's doing is it's a tile that adds a certain sort of spottiness to it, and you can change the frequency of this, and for this I'm going to put it really down, really low, and then muck around with the phase. Now it's sweeping very big dots through this system, so you'll see all kinds of wacky things going on here, and I was looking for something to give me some idea of horns, or there we go, something like that, maybe not. So the beauty of ArtMatic is that you can just play around with these things, get some wonderful effects. Now of course you could do that in the other part of the face as well if you wanted to. I've left it alone for the other part because I just want it to be fairly simple. But there we have a fairly good monster face built in ArtMatic. I'll call it quits for the tutorial just here, but I'm going to add another part of this, and I'm going to show you the wondrous power of mutation in these systems in ArtMatic. But that's going to be it for the moment.